And as you're talking, one thing that just dawned on me, as a Black community, we have no problem having the talk.
No.
Right? The talk about police, the talk about
That's right.
how to conduct yourself.
That's right.
So I'm thinking, why can't we have the talk about sex
and social media
relationships
and friendships?
All these other
That's right.
things that are equally,
That's right.
can be equally harmful to our kids.
I don't got it all planned out, but you know, I just watch it all pan out, 'cause I know that you know, covered in this life until forever.
Wow. Areva Martin, welcome to the Cool Mom Code podcast.
Well, does this mean I'm a cool mom now? Is that my new title?
I don't think you needed confirmation from us to let you know that you are a cool mom.
Thank you. I've told that to my kids,
There
but
you
I
go.
love it. Thank you for having me. You are just amazing and always doing things that are so positive and affirming.
Look, I tried, but listen, that's a lot coming from you because I could say the same right back to you. I was reading through your bio, and I'm going to be honest with you. I've obviously known your face, and I've seen you on TV. I've seen you speak on behalf of all of us. I've seen your opinions resonate through people's minds and hearts and souls for a very long time. And so for you, I look at you and I'm like, oh, Areva, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I know you, or I feel like, I get a great grasp of who you are. But reading your story, I was so intrigued because I was like, what? Like all of this? This is all that came out of this? And I think it's very interesting. And I think it actually, it sets you up for exactly where you are today. And I think that's an interesting story to tell. So I'm excited that you are here today and are able to share this story with all of us, because I'm hoping and I know that it's going to give everyone else and our listeners so much to think about and resonate with. And I think that's a very powerful thing.
Well, thank you. I hope so. You never know who you're going to touch, right? When you're telling your story, and sometimes someone random, I'll say random in the sense that you don't know them or you don't expect that to be the person, and they'll walk up to you and say, I heard you on XYZ, or I saw you here, or I read a post even on social media, and they'll tell you how much it resonated with them. So yes, that's why storytelling is so important, right?
It's
and
so
when you have a
important.
platform, if you're blessed and privileged enough to do so, it's really important that you tell those stories because you never know who's listening.
That's true. Have you always wanted to touch people in this way?
No, no, I can't say that. I always, though, was bothered by what I now can call injustices. As a kid, couldn't put that label on it, but I was always that kid that would ask the question, how come they have this and these people over here have that? So I was always asking that question. And then as I got older and as I went to school, I could articulate what the this and that really stood for and what that meant. But yeah, so I was always inquisitive in that way.
Do you think that inquisitive nature came from your own personal circumstances, though? Do you think wondering why this and that came from how you grew up?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I was in a very close-knit community, I'll say a bubble. And then when I got outside of that bubble, it's like, oh my God, there's a whole world out here. And this whole world doesn't look anything like my bubble.
Right.
And that inspired me, like, why? You guys were keeping a big secret. Like there was something going on outside this bubble that no one ever told me about. And I think I was so upset about that.
Yeah.
I felt like there was, like this whole world that me and my family and my friends and those that I grew up with, we were shielded from, but not in a positive way. Like we were pushed over to this side and not allowed to see these other things that were going on. And that's what I think really inspired me to start questioning and asking those questions, like why?
I agree with that. I mean, listen, not allowed to see. That's an interesting terminology to use. Not allowed to see. For me growing up, I think it was, my mom was a single mom. She didn't have a lot of money to allow us to travel. My community, I just knew, who I knew. I knew the kids down the street. I knew the kids over here. I went to this middle school. It wasn't until I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, which you went to too. I did. I know. I know.
Okay, what's the name of yours?
I know. Mine was called Mercy.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Detroit.
In Detroit, right outside
Okay.
of Detroit. And for me, it wasn't until I went there that I actually did start to see more of what the world could be. Now, mind you, internet was happening, but it wasn't like social media was like popping off. It wasn't like anything like that. So it was still just around the people who now I was in connection with and could see and what they did, right? Was it like that for you, or how was it for you when you finally got to start to see the world? Because your upbringing was also, I mean, you were raised by your grandmother.
Yep.
You were raised
Single.
single parent, right?
Mhm,
Household.
Single parent.
You were raised in a situation where there was disability in your house. So you saw that from a very young age. And that was something that you were very much aware of, more so than other young kids probably.
Yep.
And in a place where it's not like you came from a rich, wealthy home life. You know what I mean? You did have to like work for where you are now. And I think there's something to be said about that.
No, absolutely. It's so funny that we had these parallel
Yes, we did.
experiences. You in Detroit, me in St. Louis. Obviously,
That's
I'm
right.
older than you are, but the similarities are really uncanny because it was at that all-girl Catholic high school that I started to see this difference. And for me in particular, the school itself was in a neighborhood that was so different than my neighborhood. I had to get on a bus and, go through some very wealthy areas to
Same.
get to this high
Same.
school.
Same.
And
Same.
then meet these people whose homes were so big. It was like to get to from their back door to the end of their backyard was like walking a whole city block.
Right.
And realizing that there were people who lived so differently. And I had a little taste of that really very young, because I lived with my grandmother and my godmother in between the two. And my godmother was a janitor, and she cleaned office buildings in a suburb outside of St. Louis, a very wealthy suburb. So I would go with her to these big offices and see these elaborate desks and these elaborate, office settings. And that was, I think, my first, because I wasn't even in high school. I was like 9 years old. So seeing that was like, there's a whole nother other side of even the city of St. Louis. Because
Right.
when you're in that bubble, you don't even travel.
You don't even know it
outside-
exists.
Don't know.
You're like, who this? Whose house is this? What is
Yes.
happening? Like, what neighborhood? It's not. You don't even drive through those areas when
Yeah.
you are in your certain neighborhood.
And you're right. The internet now, though, gives kids, no matter where they're living, an opportunity. Maybe they won't visit. They won't go into the homes, but, from Zillow, Google Maps, Instagram, you can
Are you
literally
kidding?
see inside.
Areva, on YouTube alone.
Yes.
My son,
Yes.
which we are, listen, we are not huge YouTube fans of my son watching YouTube. I honestly, I'm going to be honest. I love YouTube. Arnold, don't laugh. I love YouTube. I really do. I think it is a great place for knowledge. And when you are seeking the right information, I think it's there for you. However, with my 6-year-old, I'm always like, how did you even get it? I've erased it from your iPad.
Because he's
they can,
6.
he's
That's
6,
how he
and they
got
can go
it.
through it through Safari and through internet, whatever.
God, they're brilliant.
I say this to say, the other day I'm listening to, he's talking to me. He's like, Mom, why don't we have a bowling alley in our house? Why don't we have this why aren't our house, why is it 10 stories with an elevator? I'm like, where are you seeing this? He's seeing the house on YouTube.
Yeah.
He's seeing the house on YouTube. So now it's not even Zillow and Redfin. It's like, it's YouTube that's giving
It's
them
YouTube.
full on house tours.
Yeah.
So yes.
Putting them right in the middle of that
Right.
bowling alley
Exactly.
and asking, where's our bowling alley, Mom?
Exactly.
You
I'm like,
failure?
that's right. Exactly that. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yes, a little less YouTube for the 6-year-old.
Thank you.
A little reality
Thank you.
check. But no, that is so different, right?
It's so different.
And the internet is freeing at the same time. The governor of the state of California, amongst others, is saying we need warning labels
Yes, we
on
do.
social media sites, because kids, we know, can have really horrific experiences on
Absolutely.
social media. They could be lured into all kind of sex trafficking and labor trafficking and just
That's right.
the mental health issues that arise, bullying. I mean, there's so many quote unquote bad things, but
There's so many.
in addition to all of that, there's all the wonderful things. The opportunity for that kid who maybe would never get out of that bubble now to go on YouTube and see that there is a world outside of their community. That's a really good thing.
Okay,
because
so let's
that's going to
talk about this,
inspire
though.
them.
You're absolutely right, but you just gave me two very different scenarios of what the internet, social media, and all that you have accessibility to. Yes. With these two very different scenarios, you are a mother of 3.
Yes.
How did you combat, or balance, whatever the word that you think is best to use? How did you determine what was safe for your children?
It's a challenge, and I think it's an ongoing challenge that all parents face, and good for you that the 6-year-old told you that they are, doing house tours on YouTube, because at least you know.
I took that iPad so quick. Goodbye. I mean, that iPad was gone. So
well, at least you know, right? Yeah. Because there are parents who don't know until it's too late.
Yes.
They learn much later that their kid has been bullied online, or perhaps, talking to some pedophile or something really dangerous.
That's right.
For me, it's funny. My middle daughter never, ever joined the family to watch television. And we thought, oh, what a great child we've raised. She doesn't watch television because she's reading books and she's doing something far more substantive than just staring at a television. Now, little did we know, little Miss Thing had figured out, I don't need to watch TV with the family, because right here on this laptop, I can watch all the TV I want, i.e. streaming every show that she wanted to, because her and her friends all had like one account, right?
And how old was she when you figured
she was like 12.
Yeah.
Okay. And she's like, okay, no, I don't want to watch TV. No,
Yes.
I'm fine. I'm okay. And we were patting ourselves on the back. It's like, oh my God, we've raised such a smart little girl.
Yes.
And then it's like, Orange is the New Black. What?
Yes.
After she'd watch like every episode. So, it's a challenge. All I can say is it's a challenge. And I do think there is a need for warning labels, like we label tobacco, we label alcohol. We put labels on lots of things. I'm a civil rights lawyer, so I'm in favor of anything that's going to help people make a better choice, an informed choice.
That's right.
We label movies. Like you're not taking the 6-year-old to the rated R movie.
Correct.
And there's a reason for that, because somebody's watched that content and says it's not appropriate. So I think it's important. I was watching a comedy special, a really, really famous comic. And in the audience was a 12-year-old. And these were some really racy jokes about sex and genitals and all kinds of profanity.
Right.
And I think it caught the comedian off guard, because he looked over and he was talking to like the parents, and he's like, well, who's sitting next to you? And they're like, oh, that's our 12-year-old daughter. And you could hear the audience go like, how did she get in here?
Sound
and
effects.
Then he proceeded to like tell his jokes, because he had his whole,
right.
He couldn't
routine
rework the content because she was there. But I was like, okay, now somebody needed to have edited this part out. He needed to go do this on another night. I was really offended by it. Yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, who are these parents?
I know.
And why is this 12-year-old sitting in this comedy show with this guy who is known to use every profanity in this, under the sun?
This is my question, and maybe this is a good question for you, because I always wonder, even if it's something that you control within your household, they still go to other parents and other friends' houses where parents may not be as involved or care as much or whatever.
Well, that's where we got to check out those friends, right? Everybody is not a sleepover friend.
That's right.
Everybody's house is not a house where you can have a sleepover, and you have to have those conversations with kids. I know that's how, Dominique's family does it. Right. And we are not passing judgment on Dominique's family, but this is how we do it in this house.
My God, Areva, that is my line.
Yeah.
That is my parental line.
Well,
my line is, you know what? I think that's great how they do it, but in this family, this is how we do it. That is my line.
And that will be your line until your kids are, grown and have kids of their own, because you have to constantly remind your kids without, throwing shade
that's
at
right.
other people who you do think, oh my God,
right.
that's kind of shady. But okay.
Without throwing judgments at the people you judge.
It's not that, but you do have, and kids don't understand. They just want to do it.
Right.
They just want to be with that other kid. They don't care, that they may have parents who are not going to be home chaperoning when things are happening with kids. So it's a lot, though. There are a lot of landmines that families can fall into when you're raising kids, particularly in this generation where they have access. That's what you're talking about, access
to everything.
You limit the access, but they go out on the playground, school, or community, and somebody else has that same program that you just blocked on your kid's
That's
iPad.
very much so. Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Or that phone that you won't let your kid have, their best friend has the phone.
That's right.
So
That's
now they're
right.
making phone calls.
And now you raised your kids in LA.
I did.
Raised all 3 of your kids in LA.
I raised my kids in LA, and my kids to this day talk about different things. I'll tell you, I got into trouble. I got into trouble with the family.
Really?
I was not going to name names, but I was vacationing last year with a friend who has a 12-year-old that was turning 13.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Martha's Vineyard, and there are lots of families there, and there's a lot of partying, house parties, a lot of drinking, nothing bad. But I said, wow, the kids are off in some of these really big homes by themselves where the parents are someplace else. And I says, one of the things I did with my girls in particular is I talked to them very early on about sex, about drugs, about guys, about keeping themselves safe. And I learned from my middle daughter that in her private all-girls high school that a lot of her friends as early as 6th and 7th grade had sex. And I told this to this mother. And
This is anyone who's listening. I just stopped breathing for 2 seconds.
Well, this mother stopped breathing and she stopped talking to me. she stopped. I was telling it to my daughter.
Why?
Morgan.
What was the reasoning
I think
between?
it was too raw for her. I think it was too honest. And I think there are parents that have this image of, this angelic image of their daughters and of their kids.
Right.
And they cannot imagine that their beautiful, smart, angel-like child would do something like that. And I was just trying to say to her, first of all, it happens more often than you think. And a lot of it happens in these affluent communities.
That's right.
Because the kids have a lot of freedom and they have a lot of access. So I was just I wasn't suggesting that her daughter was having sex. She could be. I wouldn't be surprised because kids at 12 and 13 have sex.
That's true.
Now, they may not have penetration sex, but they're doing, some of them are.
Yeah.
Because they're kids who are, I don't know. Here's what I've done with my kids.
Please
And
tell us, Areva, tell us what you have done with your kids.
100.
That's right.
Honest, open conversations about everything. My husband and I both entrepreneurs. He's never had a job. I've had one for 1 year out of law school. So we've had high highs and low lows.
That's right.
And we've talked to them about everything. Now, age-appropriate conversations. Now, we're not telling the 5-year-old, the lights might be
That's
off
right.
tomorrow.
There
So
you
the
go.
lights don't, we turn them on, they don't come on, We've had a bad month. So, we weren't telling them that, but we have just always been so honest and so open about everything.
Yeah.
And I credit it to how they've grown up and the success that they've had so far in their lives.
Yeah.
We were just not the kind of folks who, this is for children and this is for adults. No. Because for us, because we were entrepreneurs and our lives, involved our kids a lot. And our kids were aspiring professional tennis players. So they weren't doing traditional school a lot. They were homeschooled. So they had a lot of stuff that was different in some ways. And we just felt like we needed to be honest with them about, because we have to talk about isolation. When you're homeschooled, there's a lot of isolation. We have to talk about, socializing, making friends, what that looks like when you can't go to all the parties because you're at practice at 6 a.m, or you can't stay out past 8 o'clock, or you can't eat pizza because you've got a match. So there were a lot of things that we had to talk to them about.
Right.
And so as I'm imparting my wisdom to my friend, it was like, that was a little too much. And to this day, I think that was a lot for her. And I can appreciate it. And I know
There you
no
go,
one
yeah.
wants to hear that their
no
child
one
might
wants to hear
not
that.
be.
However, I think it's important to have a realization that it does happen. It's funny because I feel like my husband and I, we are also very much realists. Like we are very much with our kids. We're like, listen, we're going to give it to you. We're going to talk to you like you are, that you can handle this information.
Yes.
We don't want to sugarcoat anything for you. We want to tell you exactly how it is and how it may possibly be. But I think my perspective is because I feel like as children of color who I am raising, I don't have the luxury to sugarcoat it for them.
Yeah.
That is how I feel, because I wasn't sugarcoated for me, and I feel like that was helpful for me. I was raised with 2 older brothers who was like, doom, boom, 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 Lizzy, let me tell you, do, 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 do. And I think it prepared me for the world when I finally got to college and I lived on my own in New York, all by myself as a woman, all these things. And so for me, I kind of feel like it is also my responsibility, because I'm raising 2 girls and a boy. It's the same for you.
Yes,
Yeah,
2 girls and a boy.
2 girls and a boy. And I just felt like it was a little bit of my responsibility to tell her, now at 12, I have a 12, a 9, and a 6-year-old. It's my job to say, hey, this is how it really is. Just also a really quick note. If you're loving this content, our podcast with all of our amazing guests, we love sharing their stories. It really is such a joy for us. Then you're going to love thecoolmom.co. Make sure to head over there. It is everything that you can think of lifestyle. So we have fashion, food, we have amazing interviews with a lot of other cool moms as well. So check out all of our Cool Mom Co features, shop our merch, do all the things. Check out thecoolmom.co. It's my job to say, hey, this is how it really is. Did you feel like that also because they were children of color?
Absolutely. And as you're talking, one thing that just dawned on me, as the Black community, we have no problem having the talk.
No.
Right? The talk about police, the talk about
That's right.
how to conduct yourself.
That's right.
So I'm thinking, why can't we have the talk about sex
And social media
relationships
and friendships?
all these other
That's right.
things that are equally
That's right.
can be equally harmful to our kids. So no, I just did a panel on mental health and bullying.
Yes.
Taraji Henson wrote an amazing children's book about bullying, and
Oh,
I did a
wow.
mental health panel as a part of a whole book signing event she did. And we were talking about mental health.
Yes.
Our kids now, higher rates of suicide amongst Black boys and girls than we've ever seen in this country.
Wow, really?
Oh, absolutely. Unbelievable. And mental health issues, 1 in 3 Americans have suffered from some kind of mental health issue, whether it's anxiety, depression, or something even more serious.
That's right.
But yet we still have so many stigmas and so much
Shame
around talking about it. And one of the panelists was an actor. He's a 30-something-year-old actor. He has a 3-year-old son, and he bought the book. And he says, I want to start talking to my son early on about, obviously not mental health, but about being a good friend. And the book is about how to be a good friend.
That's right.
And how to not be the bully, right?
That's right.
And how to help kids who may be going through something like that. So I think we can raise better kids, better teens, better adults if we are, a lot less worried
That's right.
about these topics, because either you talk about it at home or they're going to talk about it outside of home. That's
right.
just the reality.
I think you talk about it at home. You keep it, what you said, 100% real with your kids. And then you also allow room for their emotions.
Yes.
I think that is something that kind of got lost when we were coming up, or when we were being raised, at least in my house. So I'll speak for me personally, just so I don't overgeneralize. But for friends of mine and for myself and for like my brothers, you got the emotion got lost because there were so many other things going on. You didn't have, there was no time for that. We're trying to like pay bills. We're trying to get this settled. We're trying to do this. Mom is over here. She's in 5 places at different ones. This is running for her. Grandma isn't available, blah, 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 whatever it is. There's no time for the crying or the emotions or sorting out how you feel right now. And I think it's that layer or that piece sometimes that gets lost, where also it creates, there's no outlet.
Oh, we talked a lot about that on this panel, is allowing our kids to express their emotions and accept that they may need help.
Right.
That you can't beat it out of them. You can't
exactly.
pray it out of them.
That's right.
And they may need to talk to someone that's a professional, and it's not a knock against your parenting. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent or you've done something wrong, but there may be, a need for professional intervention because the kids are dealing with so much more.
Right.
They are bombarded. I told the little joke, like, if I didn't get invited to a party, I didn't care because I didn't know. I wasn't sitting at home worried about the party. I didn't know about the party. I didn't see the party. Now, if a kid doesn't get invited to a party, they are literally sitting on their phones watching everybody post and do their little videos. And there is FOMO, like, oh my God, I didn't get invited to that party. My best friend, why didn't I get it? And that's anxiety producing.
Anxiety.
Even for grown folks, I'll see, they had a party.
Oh,
They
for real?
invited me.
Oh, y'all had that?
Okay. You might have to hit somebody up. Where was my invite?
That's right.
So if we feel that, we're gonna
If we
shake
feel
it
that,
off
exactly,
and
as
keep it
grown
moving.
adult
But
women,
a 9-year-old.
imagine. Yeah, that's right.
And then you have to go back into that classroom with all those kids who are now posting all their pictures or talking about that party. That's hurtful.
It is.
And so we've got to allow our kids to process, that. And one of the things that my daughters have helped me with is
I love it when it turns the other way
oh
now.
my God.
I love that.
I'm
Because how old are your daughters
my
now?
daughters are in their 20s.
Yes,
And
okay.
they are like, they are in the self-care.
That's right.
The soft life, the mental health days, all of that is important to them. And I'm a fix-it. I'm the person, you tell me a problem, I got like the solution, like let's get to it.
Look,
and they have
I'm
to say,
getting your
"Mom,
number after this."
sometimes we just want you to listen. We're not calling you for you. We know you can fix it.
That's right.
But we don't always want you to fix it. And I had to stop and say, oh my God. And I told them, honestly, I said, you know why I do that? It's because when I grew up, I wasn't allowed to have a problem that didn't have a solution. And I had to get to that solution quickly.
Yeah.
I remember crying my eyes out, not being able to get into some party. Like Jack and Jill shunned me. No, literally. I got a Jack and Jill phobia.
Look.
It's not even a phobia. It's like, I won't
So
use...
you didn't do Jack and Jill with the
No,
kids?
how
Okay.
could I?
Okay.
No,
Okay.
but I swore I would never let my children, and they begged me because I knew they would. I said, life's karma.
That's
You
right.
don't want my kids.
That's right.
But I couldn't get into a Jack and Jill party. I wasn't on the list. I came home, cried, and all I can remember, you better wipe those tears off your... Well, you're crying because you can't get into a... it was like... So now, if your kid can't get into a party and they're crying, you gotta console them.
Yes.
you gotta take them someplace.
That's right.
You
got to make it up somehow.
You gotta make it up. You gotta give them room to
That's right.
grieve. That's right. You can't dare say a party. You're crying about a party.
That is so true.
So-
is it hard for you, even thinking about how you just phrased that? I chuckle because I think about it sometimes so often where I'm like, how is it that we how is it that I am raising kids where I have to be so emotionally tapped in, where I feel like that's not how I was brought up. So it's it's a different part of me that I'm tapping into every time it happens. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's see, let's dissect.
Girl, that is the hardest thing ever
That's a
for me as a
hard one for
parent.
me.
And then in addition, my job as an attorney, again, it's facts. It's
black and
evidence.
white. It's
it's tell me the facts. Give me the evidence. I don't want you take the emotions out of it.
That's
my
right.
whole training is take the emotions out of it.
That's
so
right.
you couple that with an upbringing that said, take the emotions out of it. Yes, that has been a very, very, very hard. But I listen. I tell my friends who have bad relationships, my girls and I, we are besties. We have the chat group. We talk every day. And how it took work to get there.
Yeah.
And I had to change. Yeah. I had to stop trying to fix their lives. And they told me, we have therapists
for that.
And then my husband's like, what do they talk about in therapy? You.
That's right.
I'm like, I don't know.
I tell my husband all the time too. I'm like, listen, you know what? They're going to have therapy anyway. So, you're not going to get it all the way right.
Yes.
Just take it from there.
And good. And they should. And I'm like, I'm glad. I am so glad. But can you imagine, again, therapy? What? You're talking to some stranger about? So yeah, there are a lot of changes that we have to make, and hopefully you're open to it. And I tell my friends, just be open. We had to, we challenged our parents to be open to how we were, and now this generation is challenging us to be open to how they are.
With all the hardship that you faced when you were growing up, and for you to have come out of it in such a way where University of Chicago, Harvard Law, you are uberly successful now. There's a certain grit that you learn throughout the way. There's a certain knocking of down that you experience, and that you kind of are able to brush things off and keep moving. Do you feel like us raising our kids in these sort of environments where there's so much privilege, so much access, you're at a different point in life now, so even what you're able to give them is so much far different from what you came up with? This is just a question I ask myself, so I love to ask it when I see like-minded women who are in similar, who have gone through similar positions. Do you feel like your kids, because of that, don't will not have that same grit and strength that you have?
Oh, I worried a lot about that. My husband and I talked a lot about it. So we acknowledged it. So we knew that we had to be very intentional because a lot of our friends, kids, again, no shade on these parents, but, because this was the first generation where people had money and they could do things for their kids. And I mean, like exotic trips and vacations and, fancy sports cars at 16 and, big elaborate $50,000, $100,000 parties. And we had to talk about what did we want to do? What did we want to give our kids? What was the legacy? What did we want to instill in them? And we both decided that we did not want wimpy, spoiled, bratty kids, that would really break our hearts.
And how did you intentionally parent against that?
First of all, we did not give them, obviously, okay, if you stand at the Four Seasons, they stand at the Four Seasons. Okay. So you're not at the, you're not at the
Holiday
Motel
Inn,
6,
exactly.
okay? And they didn't earn that.
Yeah.
That's your money. But first of all, Black church, really, really important. Kids grew up in Black, because we didn't live in a Black neighborhood. Black church was very important. And not just going, but participating. So both of my daughters are extremely good public speakers because they did Easter plays and Christmas plays and all of the things that you do in Black church where you get exposure, where you get to speak and you get to be in front of, we went to a big Black church, so hundreds of people on a Sunday morning, sometimes even a couple of thousand. So Black church was very important. Family, not separating them from the family. And I mean like the family, like the cousins, the aunts, the uncles, the people who are still in the community, in the hood.
That's right.
Be as involved with that part of your family and recognize that but for the grace of God, there goes you. That was important. Then work. Girl, our kids have been working, and I mean working. When they, at the earliest ages possible, they had to work.
Right.
And they had to earn money. And you know what? My daughter, they are industrious. My daughter, Morgan, she didn't like what she was getting paid. She went online and found that, like Uber, they're babysitters, you sign up for a service and you can go online and hire a babysitter. She signed up for a babysitting job where she started getting jobs on the weekends where she would go and babysit because they were paying more an hour than what we were paying her to work in a law firm. And this is a funny story. So the couple whose names, and BJ knows them because we were at a party with them in DC, that did Black Love.
Yes.
The series.
Yes.
Ernest and I, my husband and I, we did a series of Black Love. So they walk into the house and they're like, okay, do you know this girl named Morgan? And we're like, oh yeah, we have a daughter named Morgan. Morgan was the babysitter.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
For this amazing
Yes,
production.
I know them too very well.
Yeah, you're
very
okay.
good friends of mine. Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, my kids early on learned the value of work, and they had to work, and then they got a salary, and then when it was time for them to get a car, they had to get a reasonably priced car that they were going to help pay the car note on and pay for insurance. So we have of course given them lots of things,
Right.
but they have also learned how to work.
Yeah.
And they don't have an expectation that we are to give them things. And they know that they have to work for it.
That's
and
right.
I just love it. And, when they start getting jobs, like, you go out. Okay, you have some money.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
What are you contributing to this bill?
That's right.
What are you doing?
That's exactly
And
right.
They learn that, and we talk about that a lot now. So there are ways to have a lot and be
I love
privileged
that, yeah.
and not raise like spoiled, horrible kids.
Those are great tips, though.
But there are a lot of spoiled, horrible kids.
I mean, listen, there's a lot of spoiled, horrible people out there.
Yes, and
kids
parents,
and people.
And you have to resist that temptation.
Well, I think
because if you have it, the inclination is just give it, right?
Not only do you have to resist it, but you also, like you just said in the beginning, you have to be aware of who the company your kids keep too.
Yes.
Because listen, I think about this all the time. They're with me. They're in my house. I am raising them. However, they go to school for 8, sometimes 10 hours a day. If they're doing after school activities or whatever, you got to be aware of who's around your children.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to say this, and this isn't anything light. So I want to get into it just for a second, though, because one of your children, you raised a child with autism, and that is a very big part of, obviously you are an advocate for social injustice, but you just as much as fiercely have created so many organizations to help autism. And I want to talk about that a little bit because, as a mother raising an autistic child, when was it the moment that you first realized that this was something that your child might have?
I was in a hair salon when my son was about 18 months old, and there was a little boy who was 18 months or around that age at the hair salon. And this little boy was so rambunctious, and he was just jumping all over the salon, and he was going to the door, greeting the clients as they were coming into the hair salon. And I was just looking at him and noticing him, and I'm thinking, wow, he's really talking. He's got great language, and he's so social. And I went home and I said to my husband, I said, I saw this little kid and I told him the story. I said, this Marty doesn't do any of that. And we had, our daughters are older, so we knew what typical development looked like. But we just thought with boys, you hear the myths, they're slower, they don't talk as fast, they don't do things as fast. And my husband's mother, who since passed away, said he didn't talk until he was 4, and then he was like a genius or something of some sorts, whatever.
Right,
what a mother says about her son.
Right.
So, but that stuck with me, that little kid, and I started asking doctors and like our primary care doctor, our pediatrician, about it, and I didn't get a lot of good responses. People were like, all kids develop differently. That great for that little kid, but don't worry about Marty. So it took me about 6 months before anybody really, I think, would hear me. And finally, I got our pediatrician to refer us to a developmental pediatrician, a doctor, a specialty I didn't even know existed at the time. And it was from just continuing to press that we got to this developmental ped. And then she saw Marty instantly and knew that he probably was on the spectrum, but did her whole battery of tests and then, gave us the diagnosis. And that was one of the things that really irritated me, because in our community, this wives' tale, this urban myth about boys being slower and not talking. And I've had parents that would come up to me and say, he's 3. Yeah. And people say, don't worry, boy. No, 3 years old, people are talking, kids are talking. They are holding whole full-blown conversations like you and I are holding. But if you've been told,
that's right,
don't worry about it.
That's right.
That's why in the Black and brown community, the diagnosis for autism is often 2 to 4 years later.
Wow.
And a lot of it has to do with inaccessibility of trained professionals. So, you go to a doctor like I went to, and they say, oh, it's fine. Well, let's wait and see. Come back in 6 months.
Right.
In 6 months, they're 6 months older.
Exactly.
And then maybe that doctor's changed. There's a new doctor there. And then they says, well, let me look at it. And I'll come back in 6 more months. And then before you know, it's 2 years later.
Yeah. And then all the time, also this child is not, that's exactly right.
And we know early intervention is so key.
It's so key. One of the things I think that I just want to just shout from the rooftops, your story being one amongst many others. And amongst many others, not just with your children, but also with yourself, women's care, especially Black women's care, all these things, is to keep following your instinct. Do not stop asking questions, because we are so likely, especially when it comes to doctors, we're like, oh, okay, and we let it go. Don't stop asking questions. Yeah. Continue to ask the question, because if you have a feeling about it, or if it's something inside you that just doesn't feel right or not settled, continue to ask the question.
If it doesn't feel right, it's probably because it's not right.
Correct.
And we know with Black women in particular, there's so many biases built into our healthcare system, so many, again, tropes about Black women. We don't feel pain. We have this ability to withstand pain, that we exaggerate our symptoms. That's a trope that still is very pervasive in our healthcare system. So I agree with you 100%. Trust your intuition. And I always tell people, ask someone else to go with you to a doctor if you're having an issue, because oftentimes you get in those rooms and you get intimidated.
Yes, right.
And, they're talking so fast, they're moving so fast that you're like, well, I won't ask this question.
Are you allowed to record it?
Some will let you, some won't.
Look, I want to ask because I'm like, are you allowed to record it? Because
some will allow
that's the thing.
You to.
Yeah.
But most people will definitely allow you to bring an advocate with you. Doesn't have to be a trained person, just be somebody else with another set of ears.
That's right.
Maybe you write your questions down before you go, and if you get nervous and can't remember the questions. They whip out the list and they read those questions, but it's so, and even doctors. I mean, you talk to, I interviewed a doctor the other day and he said, look, we don't like that we get 8 minutes or 5 minutes with you.
right.
He said, this is the healthcare system that governs, how they practice. And a lot of doctors are equally frustrated when they know they need 20 minutes with you and they only get scheduled for 5 minutes.
That's
so
right.
he encouraged his patients and said, keep pushing, push the system. Because the doctors, if it's a good doctor, they want to spend more time with you.
That's true.
So.
I could talk to you honestly for another 2 hours and not even think twice about it. But I understand you have to come back because I have so much more to say to you.
So many other things
things
about, like the Midwest.
For real. I know the Midwest. I mean, Black women. I just have so many things to say.
Yes.
I would like to give this moment to you though. Just where can we go to either help with the autism, your autism foundation? Where can we go to support? How do we do it?
Well, you can find out more, learn more about Special Needs Network, which is the name of my nonprofit, at specialneedsnetwork.org. Big website, lots of services, free summer camp we offer, lots of parent advocacy training programs. We got a new food truck business that we just launched.
I love
So we
that.
have young people on the spectrum working in this food truck. We just opened a new autism center in the heart of Willowbrook, Compton area. So
Nice.
we have families that can come in from anywhere in the country and spend 2 weeks doing intensive therapy program with their kid in our center. So we have lots of resources. So check us out, specialneedsnetwork.org, all over social media, snnla.org, and then you can find me at Areva Martin on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the social media platforms. And I have a separate website, arevamartin.com.
All right. Go check her out. Areva, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you,
like I said,
Lizzy.
I cannot wait to have you back. And honestly, I am just so floored by everything that you do. I'm floored by your story.
Oh,
I'm
thank
so
you.
inspired by you. I truly
Thank you.
am. And honestly, I feel honored. I feel honored that you sat in this seat today.
Thank you.
So thank you
for all that you do. I mean, it's a village, right?
a village.
really a village, and everybody has a role to play.
That's right.
In this
That's
village.
right.
So thank you for the role that you play.
Thank you.